Hello there and welcome to the most watched business show in the country. This is the Business Weekly Show here on City TV and I am your host, Michael Obedu. In the next 1 hour, I'll be bringing you a wrap of all the major business news stories for the week. So if you're ready, let's go. International news agency Bloomberg recently reported of an imminent fuel shortage in Ghana, citing what it says is the rationing of dollars for bulk oil distribution companies in importing the product. But industry players believe there is no cause for concern. The publication by Bloomberg further indicated that licensed bulk distributors would be challenged in accessing dollars to import fuel into the country. The central bank in April 2022 took steps to address the perennial shortage of dollars for the local petroleum sector with the introduction of a foreign exchange forward auction for bulk oil distributing companies. This was to help check the rising cost of the dollar on the market due to speculations, which further worsened the depreciation of the cedi against the major trading currency. Chief Executive Officer of the Chamber of Bulk Oil Distributors Ghana, Senyor Hosi, stated that although the latest development was worrying, the public does not have to fret.
Early this year, as this got more difficult with us accessing FX and the pricing of FX going up the roof, and we also being forced to wrongly speculate, we had an engagement with the central bank, with the leadership from our minister, Honorable Matthew Opoku Pempe, and the governor, and there was some consensus on how to rationalize the market to have a more sustainable FX supply for the market. And the reasons are this. We have to pay our suppliers in dollars. If the suppliers are getting edgy about our ability to access dollars, they will not supply us the product, whether it's finished products or it is crude. What I think we should be doing, and I think we'll be all discussing to actually expedite the process, is to get the commercial banks in a more visible way to participate on the platform. Because once they do, the international suppliers will have a lot more comfort. I want everybody to be calm about this entire shortage thing. The shortage risk is there, that's true. But there's no need to panic right now. We have enough stock to keep us stable.
Energy consultant Dr. Yusuf Suleimana stressed that these developments were expected as more than double the amount of dollars is required to purchase the same volume of fuel presently as compared to the start of the year. He, however, insists that it's imperative that policies are reviewed and homegrown solutions adopted to better manage the situation.
All is not lost. We still have available opportunity. What do we need to do at this moment in time? If it is true that, we are rationing dollars or our foreign reserves are gradually getting depleted, then we have to strategically think inwards. That what we have been talking about. We can cool that up. Let's cool that down. Let's minimize the pressure on the dollar. And the only way we can minimize pressure on the dollar is to minimize the amount that we take out. The pressure on the dollar is what we take out to import finished product. And if you cannot minimize, the credible conduit to minimizing that is to source some of these products locally. And that's why day in and day out we have been calling over the years, even before this crisis, that let's have a local refinery. Our downstream is growing and growing phenomenally. Other than that, will be taken by surprise, and that's what is happening now. So having a local refinery is a serious coolant on the current crisis, a serious pressure relief on the current crisis. The second possible opportunity is to have a massive storage capability. Yeah, because these are the local capabilities that we have, and I think fortunately we have both. We only need to retool these infrastructures and make them vibrant.
However, the Minister for Finance, Ken Ofori-Atta, appearing before Parliament, assured the government remains committed to implementing measures to address the rampant increases in fuel prices.
The Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, was in Parliament on Wednesday, 22nd June 2022, to deliver a statement on how government expended funds meant to fight against the COVID-19 pandemic and to answer some 16 questions from different MPs on his sector. Ken Ofori-Atta's 15-page statement to Parliament on the utilization of COVID-19 funds indicated that out of a total of 19 billion Ghana cedis realized from multiple sources, almost 12 billion Ghana cedis was used for direct COVID-19 spending, while 7 billion Ghana cedis was used to support the budget. Whilst responding to a question by the Member of Parliament for the Botiano English Yamanfrom constituency, Sylvester Tete, on interventions government is employing to check the continuous increments in fuel prices, Ken Ofori-Atta assured that government remains committed to implementing measures to address the issue.
Fuel prices have been deregulated since June 16, 2015, with oil marketing companies determining prices based on market forces. The increment in ex-pump fuel prices have been occasioned by volatilities in external crude oil prices and foreign exchange effects. Since January 2022, international crude oil prices have increased from some $74.17 per barrel in December 2021 to a high of $133.89 per barrel in March 2022. As of yesterday, 21st June 2022, crude oil prices were still high at $115 per barrel. Government has intervened to reduce the impact of the price increases on Ghanaians. In October 2021, government suspended the price stabilization and recovery levies on petrol, diesel, and LPG for 2 months. In addition, government reduced the margins in the petroleum price build-up by 15 Ghana pesos per litre in April 2022. Mr. Speaker, government will continue to monitor the developments and act where possible.
Still on the issue of fuel, and the National Petroleum Authority (NPA) says the government has come up with an intervention to ensure fuel importers get petroleum products at predictable rates. At this point, anything to help check the rampant increment in prices will be welcoming news for everyone.
In order to help stabilize the price of fuel at the pumps, the NPA says government has come up with an intervention to help fuel importers, which will prevent the phenomenon where the prices keep going up due to the depreciation of the Ghana cedi as against the dollar. Abbas Ibrahim Tasunti is the head of economic regulation at MPA.
We realize that we import the products in dollars and we sell in cedis. So the FX is very, very key. So if the FX keeps depreciating or our importers are not getting FX at predictable rates to be able to use to set their prices, it affects the price of fuel. So MPA does not sit aloof. We have had several engagements with the government and the Bank of Ghana to see what can be done. So what the government of Ghana, through the Bank of Ghana, has been doing since April is that instead of making the oil importers go to the market and partake in the normal auction that was done for the whole country, a special FX auction is being done for the oil importers, for them to be able to get dollars at predictable rate so that they can move away from speculating and using higher FX rate in pricing. So this is an intervention that, like I said, started from April. Every 2 weeks, the Bank of Ghana organizes this FX auction for the oil importers alone to be able to provide them dollars at rates that they can apply in their pricing formula. We've seen that this intervention has helped significantly because comparing the rate that the Bank of Ghana is giving to these oil importers or has been given to these oil importers to what they would have used ideally if they were predicting or speculating rates, it has made the ex-refining price to be a bit lower by about 8%. If not for such an intervention, we would have been buying the products at the ex-refining price about 8 to 9% higher. So indeed, it's a significant thing, and MPA is part of the committee at the Bank of Ghana that is organizing this FX auction and making recommendations as to how this should be done to help stabilize prices in a way for consumers.
With many people complaining about the high price of fuel, the MPA also warns the public to pay attention to the grade of fuel they buy in order for them not to pay more for fuel in vehicles that do not necessarily require that grade of fuel. Saeed Ubedala Kutia is the head of quality assurance at MPA.
So currently we have two different types of petrol. The high grade petrol and the normal grade petrol. The regular grade petrol is normally red. That is all what the one most of us are aware of. But there's a high-grade petrol according to the Ghana standard, which is called the premium grade, colored green. So the color is to the effect that one is a higher grade. The higher grade in terms of the research octane number, normally called ROND. One is minimum 95, which is the high grade, and the regular grade is minimum 91. The 91 is okay for our regular use, but the 95 is a special requirement by certain high-grade vehicles. So what it means is that if you put a high grade, which is the green petrol, in your car, there's no problem. It's just like, as we will say, adding more meat to the soup, it doesn't spoil it. But what suffices for all of us is the regular grade, which is the red color, and that is RON 91 product.
The MPA officials made a statement on the sidelines of a sensitization exercise being organized for media practitioners in the Ashanti region on the operations.
The Energy Ministry recently hinted that Tema Oil Refinery could commence operations by the end of 2022 after years of remaining redundant. As the government makes efforts to get TOR back on stream, it is important that systems are put in place to ensure that the refinery operates efficiently and at par with international standards. Ghana's only refinery, Tema Oil Refinery, hasn't been functional for a long while due to a number of factors, including overdue maintenance, tax liabilities, and overwhelming 400 million Ghana cedi debt. But with news of the refinery resuming operations in a couple of months, consumers of fuel may soon heave a sigh of relief, as this could in the long term translate into relatively cheaper fuel prices. Already, fuel prices have shot up by over 100% this year alone, a situation that consumers have described as worrying. Energy consultant Dr. Yusuf Sulemana expects that should the refinery finally commence operations, it must work to ensure efficiency.
It's going to be a huge pressure relief. So yes, I think it's an interesting development and it's a welcoming one. What to be the target, or what is the expectation? The expectation is that, the refinery should be run efficiently. If the refinery runs efficiently and churn up products that are of high quality, and that can compete with international standard, it's going to help a lot. Refinery running is a serious business at this moment, and it's a serious pressure relief. First of all, for the city, as in the kind of importation that we do. We run the dynamics whereby we almost export everything that we produce as in crude oil, and then we equally import everything that we consume as in the petroleum product. And that has been very huge. That has come at a cost. What are the cost implications? Clearly, you will see that it's not good for our city. Our city is wobbling, and one of it is this one. Another issue that I think that will be of much focus if a refinery runs at this moment in time is to guarantee, quality products that every oil marketing company or BDC, can be served with.
He further reiterated the need for the government to allow the refinery function without meddling in its affairs.
A refinery coming online it should be a serious business, and I think the government should focus on that. So yes, government need to pick leadership in the refinery and then minimize interferences in the day-to-day running of the refinery as possible. If that is done and give the refinery a chance to operate, I think it will help the nation as a whole.
Meanwhile, management of the Tema Oil Refinery TOR says it has taken concrete steps to bring the country's premier refinery back to business within the next few months. In a newly released statement, the management of TOR said the government of Ghana, through the Ministry of Energy, had given TOR the go-ahead to negotiate a lease agreement to refine crude oil with a private investor, Decimal Capital Limited, whose proposal emerged as the most appropriate to meet the needs of the refinery among the host of proposals that were presented. This is expected to boost the local supply of refined oil products and help stabilize the Ghana cedi. in the face of the ongoing international oil market crisis. A local transactional advisor had been contracted by TOR to lead the negotiations in formulating the lease agreement, which is expected to be completed over the next 3 to 4 weeks. The investment partner is expected to provide funding for a first phase, which will bring the crude distillation unit of TOR back on stream to refine about 45,000 barrels per day in the next few months. Production from TOR can contribute about a third of the current monthly consumption of diesel and the full requirement of aviation turbine kerosene and the fuel oil needs of the country. Ghana's economy has grown by 3.3% in the first quarter of 2022, but this is the slowest rate of growth recorded since the third quarter of 2020. Non-oil gross domestic product, that is economic growth without oil, also expanded by 3.7%.
The 3.3% growth in gross domestic product for the first 3 months of this year is the lowest since the country recovered from the contractions recorded during the COVID-19 pandemic. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, the services sector remains the largest sector of the economy with a 45% share of GDP, while that of industry was 32% and agriculture was 23%. The information and communication subsector was the major driver of this growth, followed by the crops and cocoa subsector. The government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina Enim, gives more details into the performance of the economy for quarter 1 of 2022.
From a non-oil perspective, in nominal terms, the economy grew by 131,025.2 million Ghana cedis relative to 101,105.1 million Ghana cedis as the value of the economy for the first quarter of 2021, indicating about a 20,000 million Ghana cedis difference from a nominal perspective over the 1 year period. From a constant perspective, from a real perspective, the economy in the first quarter of 2022 stood at 46,833.9 million Ghana cedis, culminating in a 3.3% growth rate in the first quarter of 2022. This indicates a 0.3 percentage point reduction relative to the growth rate in the first quarter of 2021. From a non-oil perspective, the economy stood at 44,044.3 million Ghana cedis, indicating a non-oil GDP growth rate of 3.7%, indicating a drop from 5.3 as we did record that in the first quarter of 2021 relative to 3.7 in the first quarter of 2022. From a sector perspective, the economy was driven largely by the services sector, and this growth in the services sector was largely driven by information and communication, and the contribution of the services sector was 44.6%, followed by the industry sector, 32.5%, and the agriculture sector contributed 22.9% to the overall growth rate of 3.3 that we recorded in the first quarter of 2022. We look at also this from a seasonally adjusted quarter-on-quarter basis. The economy grew in the last quarter of 2021 by 1.8%, but in the first quarter of 2022, this dipped to 0.9%, indicating halving of the growth rate that we recorded in the last quarter of 2021.
Professor Enim also mentioned that 7 subsectors led by professional, administrative and support service activities and public administration, defense and social security contracted. The remaining sectors that contracted during the period were real estate, construction subsector, education, health and social work subsector, and the forestry and logging subsector.
Ghanaians continue to deal with increases in the cost of goods and services as the country's inflation rate consistently records a rise. The Bank of Ghana says 80% of the causes of the rise in inflation can be attributed to global factors.
As at May 2021, Ghana was enjoying the lowest rate of inflation it had recorded in years. At 7.5%, the rate had fallen within the medium-term target band of the Bank of Ghana of 6 to 10%. Fast forward to May 2022, and the story couldn't be any different. National inflation as at May this year had risen for 12 straight months, hitting an 18-year high of 27.6%. Speaking as part of the 8th edition of the APSA UPSA Law School Quarterly Banking Roundtable on the topic, monetary policy, central bank leadership, and the stability of the city, the head of research at the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Philip Abredotu, reiterated the key factors, global and domestic, that have fed into Ghana's current high inflation rate.
Next, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, we also see geopolitical tensions in Eastern Europe. And again, China's zero tolerance policy on COVID. These have resulted in the following. We see a surge in global crude oil prices. Is that in the control of the central bank? No. We see a rise in metals. Steel prices have gone up from 2,000 a ton on the world market to 6,000 a ton on the world market. This has fed through our consumer prices, and we are seeing that magnitude of jump in the basket. Our consumer basket has items like steel rods, and the central bank, no. Especially if you look at grains and cooking oils and other things, the World Food Price Index, the last time I checked, had jumped up well over 14%. That is very significant. Is that in the control of the central bank? No. We also see rise in agricultural inputs. Of course, the most popular one is fertilizer prices. Is that in the control of the central bank? No. We also see that agricultural mechanization, in our little surveys that we conduct here at the central bank, agricultural mechanization has gone up.
Dr. Abredotu went on to defend measures taken by the central bank to help curb the high inflation rate, focusing especially on domestic factors.
We've seen a series of upward adjustment increases in petroleum prices, rising food domestic on the back of input supply challenges, high imported inflation due to sharp depreciation. All these things have played. If you put them all together, I think the weight is 80% global, it's 20% domestic. And I think the central bank is doing what it can in its own little way to try to address that domestic component, with the hope that as we move along and as all these factors fizzle out, we will begin to see inflation decelerate nicely back into the target.
Financial institutions are not keen to lend to the agricultural sector for a number of reasons, including the risk associated with such investments. On the other hand, this denies the sector of the needed funds to grow. The Ministry of Agriculture says it will soon resort to legislation to compel banks to lend to players in the agricultural sector.
As part of the Ministry of Agriculture's efforts to ascertain the facts about the increasing high cost of food on the Ghanaian market, the sector minister, Dr. Ofori-Atta, together with some senior management members of his outfit, paid a working visit to the eastern region. Their visit took them to the Legacy Crop Improvement Center at Otariso in the Akuapem North Municipality, Ibros Farms at Kwame Dodu Krom, Pinora Company Limited, all in the West Akem Municipality, and Sahem Farms and TK Farms Krodua Chirinyame in the West Achem District, where they interacted with farmers and owners of these companies to know their shortfalls. The minister, Dr. Ofori-Atta, who was impressed, revealed that a legislation will be introduced for commercial banks to lend to farmers and those in the value chain.
What we are making a whole lot of efforts to ensure that we bring in the commercial farmers, including possibility of introducing legislation so that commercial farmers would have to lend a portion of their portfolio to farmers. Commercial banks should lend a portion of their portfolio to farmers and those in the value chain, the processors and the others. And that is the only way. And we wouldn't be the first country in this world to do that. India has been practicing that for 30 years. So definitely you are going to hear something in Parliament about this initiative that we are going to take as a way of making sure that the commercial banks also play their role, because government is playing its role by subsidizing inputs and all that.
Touching on the high cost of food in the cities, Dr. Friye, who attributed the situation to the hikes in fuel and transportation fares coinciding with the seasonal dry period, was hopeful the narrative will change in the new crop season. On poultry, Dr. Friye, who affirmed the high cost of poultry feed, attributed it to external factors.
Support. You see, like you heard in Doba Ahinkro when we met the poultry farmers, it's very obvious. Prices of poultry feed, which make up 70-80% of cost of production, has gone up. And we saw it even in the presentation today by the regional director in Eastern Region. Prices at the same time if you compare prices this year, January, February, March, April, May, compared to the same 2021, 2020, 2019, the prices have shot up. And they've shot up for a very simple reason, that the chemicals, agricultural chemicals, have gone up 2-3 times. And that means that the cost of production has gone up on the farm. And at the same time, fuel prices have trebled or more than trebled. And it means that haulage from the farm gate to the centers of consumption have also gone up.
The Eastern region, which boasts of arable lands and serves as major food basket for a number of markets in Accra, lacks processing facilities, a situation district directors in the region are worried about.
Visit them in the Krobo area, especially to do with mango production. They produce a lot of mango, but processing is a challenge to them. Processing facility for them to add value into juice, mango powder, mango chips, and the like. The markets that they have locally and internationally cannot absorb all their production, so they want a processing facility in the Krobo area. Thank you very much.
I want to call to your assistance in relation to the employment situation for the NAPCO. Per the figures that were shown, 2021, we had 7 staff retiring. I just want to ask if it's possible to have employment for them through replacement, so that those retired staff, their details will be used to replace the NAPCO staff, if it is possible. Thank you.
Unemployment remains a major challenge in Ghana, and the COVID-19 pandemic further worsened the situation. But the government says it is making efforts to address the challenge and has launched the National Unemployment Insurance Scheme under the Ghana Cares program.
The National Unemployment Insurance Scheme under the Ghana Cares program seeks to help over 15,000 workers in the private sector who were mostly affected by the COVID-19 pandemic. The first phase of the initiative, which is starting with the tourism and educational sectors, will enable private sector workers who became unemployed due to the COVID-19 pandemic to undertake some vocational and technical training to meet the demands of the labor market. It is being championed by the Finance Ministry in partnership with the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations. According to the Ghana Statistical Service, currently more than 1.55 million people, or 13.4% of the country's economically active population, are out of work. Despite major investments by both government and private sector, stakeholders have been pushing for more to be done to curb the unemployment rate. Delivering the keynote address at the launch of the program, Finance Minister Ofori-Atta assured that government will continue to implement programs that seek to enhance the skills and welfare of workers to meet the demands of the labor market as the economy recovers from the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic.
In meeting obligations to workers and Ghanaians in general, we as government shall continue to implement programs that seek to enhance the skills and welfare of workers to ensure productivity and elevate the issue of values and ethics to reduce loss leakages. We are ensuring skills development that meet the demands of the Ghanaian labor market and promotes decent work. The government's resolve to invest in the people of Ghana, particularly the youth through the Youth Start program, is critical. The implementation of NUIS programs would ensure strategic workforce development through training and retraining to enhance employability and improve productivity. So even under difficult times when the economy is facing challenges largely on account of global shocks and domestic developments, We prioritize this program as we believe the medium to long-term benefits are enormous for the worker output enhancement for the economy.
The Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Ofori-Atta, also assured of more collaboration and investments in work-based learning, coaching and mentoring to equip young people with the skills needed for work. He noted that workers from other sectors of the economy will be roped in subsequent phases.
Focus of the training and retraining will be on the education sector, the private education sector, and then the tourism and hospitality sector. We did a survey during the COVID period, at the heat of it, and we realized that these were the two formal sectors of society that were hardest hit by COVID. And not just that, the number of persons involved too were quite huge. And therefore we felt that if there was any intervention to actually make an impact in society, this was the area that we should focus. That is not to say that the other areas are not important. Going forward, we will expand the basket, and then more and more persons will be roped in.
City TV is live on DSTV. Go to channel 363. On GoTV, access City TV on channel 182. On a digital TV, please press the menu button on the remote control and run a new search on your TV. Take note that without an antenna, you cannot access City TV on your television. City TV can be accessed on a free-to-air digital box like the GoTV and StarTimes box. City TV, it's your world.
It's just about 5 weeks more to end the SIM card re-registration exercise, and it appears the inability of customers to access their national identification cards is hampering the process. Some telco players are concerned that this would affect the number of customers in their networks if nothing is done to address the challenge.
The ongoing process for phone users to re-register their SIM cards using biometrics has continued to resuscitate concerns not only about the deadline for the process, which is fast approaching, but also about delays in the issuance of the Ghana card, which is the sole ID document needed to go through the exercise. More and more public service institutions now require citizens to present their Ghana cards for transactions, but some who applied for this new form of identification are yet to receive their cards months and years after applying for them. The biometric SIM re-registration started October last year and is set to end on 31st July after a postponement from the earlier date of March 31st, 2022. Although the process initially started with long queues and huge numbers of people gathered at telecommunication network offices, most of these network companies have implemented measures to ease the stress suffered by users in the past couple of months. But the inability of many to access the Ghana card remains a problem for both customers and telecommunication networks. Chief Executive Officer of MTN Ghana, Selom Adadivo, lamenting this situation, said his outfit is partnering the National Identification Authority to facilitate the process to allow for customers to come re-register their SIM cards. He was speaking during a virtual stakeholder and media forum held on Monday.
There is a major challenge ahead of us, and we've tried to put in a little bit more effort and ensure that we can ramp up the process quite aggressively. So for example, we have over 7,000 devices and registration points currently. We also have staff that support registration, so we've activated most of our staff to support registration. We also have teams that go out into various communities, they go to churches, they go to markets, They go to different community events. And we also have mapped out areas where we don't have a presence and we have low registrations so far. So these are all things we're doing. The sales and distribution team, the marketing team, the customer care team. Literally everyone in this business is focused on this for the next 5 weeks to make sure we can get to 100% of our customers registered. Of course, there's a challenge with how many of our customers have the national ID card. So that's an area that we're looking at as well. How can we support the National ID Authority to make sure our customers can get the cards so that they can do the registration? So we're doing some partnerships with the NIA as well, so that we can accelerate for those who don't have a national ID card, especially those in the remote areas, to help them get the national ID card so we can facilitate registrations for them.
Interestingly, over 300,000 Ghanaians are unable to access their Ghana cards from the National Identification Authority months after applying for them. The NIA, however, says it is working hard to clear its backlog before the stated deadline for the acquisition of the Ghana card.
Customers of banks and other financial institutions that are yet to update their records with the Ghana card have less than 10 days to do so, or risk not being able to engage in any financial transactions through their accounts. The Bank of Ghana had earlier explained that the National Identification Authority Verification Transaction Platform will be integrated into its financial monitoring platform to ensure that all financial transactions performed within the ecosystem are linked to one identity and information to facilitate the identification of beneficiaries for track and trace purposes. All this is being done as part of the government's efforts to ensure that the National Identification Card is used as the sole identification document for every transaction performed in the country. However, it is unfortunate that over 300,000 Ghanaians who have registered for the Ghana card have not been able to receive their cards from the National Identification Authority, and this has come as a great concern to many as the July 1st deadline draws near. Addressing these concerns, the head of corporate affairs at the NIA, Dr. Abdul Ganiyu, says his outfit is working hard to clear its backlog before the stated deadline.
As we speak, we have registered about 16.8 million now, and we have printed about 16.5 million cards. So in that respect, you can see a shortfall of about 300,000. So it is very much possible that most of the people complaining now are within the 300,000 cards that are yet to be printed. In effect, 16.8 million, we've printed 16.5 million cards. So the cards that have been in backlog should be around 300,000.
Isn't that significant enough to affect the July 1 deadline?
Yes, it's certainly a significant number. Even if they are just in their tens and hundreds, that's quite significant. So in the next couple of days, we will try to print these cards across the country, and we would announce to the general public to know that wherever you registered, if your card has not been issued to you, you could now go there and pick up the cards and then go through process. July 1 is still a couple of days ahead, and I believe that much of that problem should be dealt with by the 1st of July.
While some are yet to receive their cards, others are lamenting the inability of their telecommunication network companies to validate their SIM cards with the Ghana card. Dr. Abdul Ganiyu attributed the problem to technical issues which the telcos themselves have to resolve.
The validation of the Ghana card, that is a technical problem, largely, that has to be dealt with by the telecos. This is because anytime people have come to the NIA with that complaint, we have been able to validate the card, and we find that there's absolutely nothing wrong with the card. Where we have established that there is no data on the card and it becomes very difficult to read, we have gone through the process of printing a new card for those individuals. But most of the time, when people come around, we are able to validate the card. And indeed, when they go back to the telecommunication service provider, maybe if they use a more superior gadget that can read the data, for instance, they are able to do so. So it's been a challenge since the SIM card re-registration began, but much of that problem really has to do with the telecommunication service providers.
As Ghana continues to be locked out of the international capital market due to its high debt to GDP ratio as well as its poor credit rating among others, President Akufo-Addo is calling for a scrapping of the African risk premium calculated into loans given to African countries. He believes this not only makes cost of capital for countries on the continent expensive and also counterproductive.
Eurobonds are international bonds issued by a country in a foreign currency, usually in US dollars and euros. The interest rates, term of bond and coupon payments are determined by market conditions, and because of poor credit ratings and perceptions of high risk, African bonds are classified as high yields. Some have criticized the rates that African countries pay for these bonds, that is 5 to 16% on 10-year government bonds, compared to near zero to negative rates in Europe and the US. Despite being locked out of the international capital market, Ghana can be described as being one of the most active African countries when it comes to the Eurobond market. It issued its first Eurobond in 2007 and since then has borrowed over $15 billion, typically using the Eurobond funds to finance maturing debt obligations and heavy infrastructure projects. With an eye on returning to the market in the future, President Akufo-Addo, speaking at the 2022 European Union Development Days Conference in Brussels, Belgium, called for a review of the African risk premium.
Rising interest rates and rising cost of living are resulting in severe macroeconomic and financial instability. What is clear is that the ensuing damage cannot be cured so easily with the limited fiscal tools at our disposal and national policy adjustments.
President Akufo-Addo, meanwhile, bemoaned the struggles of government's fiscal policy measures along with monetary policy measures to deal with the financial instability caused by rising interest rates, escalating debt, among other challenges emanating from the COVID-19 pandemic and the ongoing Russia-Ukraine war. He also expressed concern over the slow release of funds meant to help support recovery of economies, especially in Africa, in the aftermath of the COVID-19 pandemic.
In these trying times, the amount of $650 billion United States dollar special drawing rights approved for the IMF in August 2021 was meant to provide significant relief. However, based on allocation principles, economies in Africa got a total of only $33 billion United States dollars, about 5%. Moreover, the promise to reallocate some 100 billion United States dollars of the SDR allocations to African economies, agreed to at the Paris summit in May 2019, has so far yielded about 36 billion United States dollars in pledges as of April 2022.
The first Tier 4 data center in Ghana was opened in Accra on Thursday, and Vice President Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia is pleased at the high level of interest being shown by foreign investors in improving Ghana's digital infrastructure.
The Onyx Data Center, which is one of the few Tier 4 digital centers in Africa, adds to Ghana's existing data center, which will serve not only the local market but also the sub-region. According to the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, the establishment of the ultra-modern data center is in line with government's vision to make Ghana a digital hub in the sub-region, and the massive investment will offer businesses more alternatives for sensitive data storage.
This strategic investment by the African Infrastructure Investment Managers and its management will assist the government to realize our digitalization goals as it continues to build new systems to change the old ways of doing things. I am told that the initial investment and subsequent ones by the African Infrastructure Investment Managers is and will be in excess of $48 million, which represents tangible proof that foreign investors continue to have faith in our digital transformation agenda in Ghana. Again, I'm reliably informed that in late 2021, Onyx was certified as the only African-based carrier-neutral co-location data center outside of South Africa to be awarded the coveted Uptime Institute Tier 4 accreditation. This therefore makes Ghana the only Tier 4 hub with the only Tier 4 data center in West Africa, as we have been told.
The Onyx data center is the most complex data storage system with the most redundant components which only a few countries in Africa have. As a Tier 4 enterprise class facility, which is the highest level for a data center, Onyx will offer stable, reliable and uninterrupted service with an annual expected uptime of 99.995%. To enhance security of data, the data center has 2.5 times the amount of required backup when maintenance or planned or unplanned disruptions occur. Kwame Edem-Scott, the head of sales for Onyx Data Center, tells City Business News the Tier 4 data center satisfies the increasingly stringent requirements laid down by regulated entities such as telecommunication companies, banks, social media companies, healthcare facilities, the education sector, and various arms of government which house sensitive information.
So if you watch the technological trends in the world now, everybody is looking at Africa as the next big changer or the next game player. So we have inadequate data centers in this country, especially Tier 4 facility. When we look at the world-class providers in terms of the hyperscalers, TikTok, Alibaba, Bloomberg, these guys won't come to any data center lower than Tier 4. So this one is strategically set up for the local market, but also can appeal to the international market. So that's why we have this world-class data center, which is a Tier 4 within the West African sub-region, so that we can accommodate the market demands, both locally and international.
Finally, we end with highlights of week 4 of this year's edition of the City Business Festival On Air series, which was on the topic Surviving the Uncertainties of Consumer Markets and Increasing Ghana's Trade Competitiveness. The City Business Festival is mainly sponsored by Absa Bank with support from MTN Momo and MTN Business, Ghana Investment Promotion Center, IT Consortium and GESA. The current macroeconomics of the country seems to be stifling growth for players in the manufacturing sector, with inflation skyrocketing and the cost of lending increasing, among others.
We are suffering, if I should say that. It is not easy at all. I said earlier, where most of the materials we use in producing are not locally made, where we have to import. Important means changing Ghanaian cedi into the dollar or into whichever currency that will be useful for the importation to import. It is also not easy, especially working in a situation where factors are not stable. We are talking of fuel, which is rising, the cost of fuel rising. We are talking of electricity, which powers our machinery, rising. You are talking of labor. You know, we are not the only people suffering. Those working for us and with us are also having effects of the macroeconomic instability. So they're also demanding money. And when all this come to play on the manufacturer, it makes it so difficult to keep up the pace in manufacturing now.
But it appears policies that will address the challenges of Ghana's manufacturing sector and boost local production are central to improving the situation.
What we've been continually doing is attacking the problem on, let's say, the 30 or 40% that is manufactured truly, in terms of, if you look at the value chain, maybe 60-70% of, let me use this example, 60 or 70% of this is manufactured in Ghana. You can start doing things to affect it. But if the majority of what you engage in is outside, you are basically playing a losing battle. And I think this has been the lesson from an economic perspective since 1992, is that every time there is a bump in the world, we suffer. When there isn't a bump in the world, we are able to do things and manage our process. So the only way to address it, he was saying more comprehensive, I actually think is not as difficult as it sounds. It is actually very simple. We have to simply manufacture more in Ghana and source more of our raw materials from Ghana. It is actually that simple.
But do made in Ghana products have a potential to thrive, and how can they be actively promoted?
There's been a lot of consciousness, and consciousness is part of this. We used to consume a lot of local rice. When I was young and I was growing up, most of the rice around, and I'm not the oldest person in the room, but most of the rice that I saw growing up was locally produced rice. For some reason, in a very short period of time, we've had this radical shift to foreign imported rice. But in the last 5 years, if you like, there's been a lot of very conscious campaign to promote locally produced rice. And you see this campaign is having an impact. So mindset shifts and building the consciousness for locally produced goods is a part of this. It's not just going to happen by chance.
Funding is crucial to boosting local industries, but the financial sector also has its set of challenges with venturing into such sectors.
I think there are two key problems that we need to try and resolve. The first one is access to financing in the first place, and the second one is the cost of it in the second place. So let me treat the cost first. So with the cost of financing, I think there are certain things that are beyond the financial institutions, that is the macroeconomic conditions. When they are right, it makes it easier for us to price accordingly. As I speak to you, we've had to price above our cost of funds, which obviously we know is going on very high. The other thing is that I think that we need to work to better reference customers' credibility. We need better risk scoring models. We need better credit reference bureaus to understand the customer's risk to be able to price accordingly. I think that is an area that we all need to develop in that area. We need a much more responsive legal system where when covenants are put in, offer letters and stuff, as financial institutions will be able to execute them. And also the right of the lender, which according to the Lenders and Borrowers Act, should be able to help us recover collaterals that have been assigned to us as much as possible.
Absa Bank is the main sponsor of the City Business Festival 2022 edition, with support from MTN Momo and MTN Business, IT Consortium, the Ghana Investment Promotion Center, and GESAL. COVID-19 disrupted global supply chains due to the many restrictions it came with, among other things. This led to a hike in the price of freight globally, with it more than doubling in some cases. As the world continued to grapple with this, the Russia-Ukraine war further exacerbated the situation by hampering supply of major commodities like steel, fertilizer components, wheat, among others. Locally, this led to a significant increase in the price of wheat products like bread. Michael Koto, the senior partner for research firm Confidant, believes indigenous industry players must harness the opportunity that this growing scarcity presents. He was speaking on the City Business Festival Onyx series on the topic, the dynamics of Ghana's retail space.
Our hypothesis is that it's most likely that the COVID-19 induced global supply chain difficulties that we've seen all over the world. It's not just Ghana. This is a big challenge, supply chain challenge across most of the world. Mm-hmm. So that's most likely the main issue here. But I think it raises, and you did allude to this discussion that we had in 2020 and 2021, because I had made a point that the disruptions in global supply chains presents an opportunity for us to boost, made in Ghana. So quite clearly, what this survey is telling us is that window of opportunity is still open. And there's an opportunity for local producers to try and, step in and take advantage, because there's a shortfall. It was obvious.
He was, however, quick to add that this could come with its own set of challenges.
There are difficulties to local producers taking advantage of these opportunities. So it's the opportunities there, the window of opportunity is there, but it is not obvious and it is not that easy for local producers to easily step in and fill the gap, because these disruptions are temporary. The supermarkets are tied to all kinds of international, sourcing arrangements. They will typically wait it out and try and, have their international suppliers resolve whatever the bottlenecks are. So the window of opportunity is there. I think that sometimes if we don't do research like this, it's just an idea. But what is research has done, it has concretized it. It's shown that it's real. There's actually a gap. There's a supply chain challenge. Local producers can look to the research we have done. They can look at the product categories where we've seen a major drop in foreign brands, and they can approach the supermarkets and try and do a deal. There's an opportunity there.
Well, that will be all for this week's edition of the Business Weekly Show here on City TV, your most watched business show in the country. For more business news stories, check out our website, citybusinessnews.com. And don't miss out on the business dashboard that airs on City TV at 10 p.m. sharp every weekday, with a repeat the following day at 7 and 10:30 a.m. My name is Michael Obodu. Let's connect on Twitter at @mobodu. Thank you for tuning in. Catch you same time next week. Stay safe, stay informed. Bye-bye.